We do our best, okay? All right, let's get back into it, shall we?
Yeah.
All right, so we were talking about body language, and part of that was to be mindful of the other person that you're speaking with and their body language too. Are they engaged? Are they open? Are they relaxed? Are they inviting? Are they closed off? Are they not interested? Are they uncomfortable? Are they not engaged? Okay, you need to respond accordingly. Don't try to force this out of someone if they're just clearly unwilling and not paying attention to you. When people are going, yeah, it's really bad. Anyway, I gotta go. Just act accordingly. Let them go. Be mindful of your body language. I talked a little bit about where you would place your hands and stuff, but also your posture and your hand movements as well. If you're being too crazy with your hand movements, so don't be surprised if they're going to be overly stimulated by you. And then eye contact as well. While you're talking to them, don't be darting around, looking around like this, not paying attention. Look at the person you're talking to. Do's and don'ts. Now, when you're communicating, a lot of times we find ourselves in the vegan movement saying things like, you are supporting this, you are contributing to this. What is far more effective than saying that, and far more accurate actually, is to say that you are demanding this, that you are responsible for this. The difference is that when you say that you are merely supporting this, that does not distinctly address their responsibility, right? You are contributing to this, is not also addressing their direct responsibility. The way I like to think of it is, if you have the wife of a hunter who is at home, who supports the husband going out and killing animals, but they're not actually doing the killing themselves. That's supporting, right? Does that make sense? Yeah. You brought this up. Don't refer to animals as its or things as much as you can help this. We are responsible for correcting the language and the culture when it comes to the way humans view animals. No one else is going to change the way that humans view animals and the culture around that other than vegans. So understand how much responsibility you have. Vegan versus plant-based. Our job as animal rights activists is to correct the language and address the confusion. We want to make sure people don't see veganism as a diet anymore. Veganism applies to many aspects of our lives, not just our diets. Someone could eat a plant-based diet while wearing animal skins and using products tested on animals. Why? Because they are doing it for their health. It's okay to say vegan diet. We just want to make sure people understand that veganism is not actually a diet. I would prefer saying plant-based diet. But context matters. So what are you saying for the majority of your interaction? Make sure you're not allowing certain things to trip you up. Vegan versus cruelty-free. When you see cosmetic products and they have both of them written on there, if something is vegan by default, it's cruelty-free. It ought to be. Vegan means no animal-based ingredients and not tested on animals. Now, let's get into some things that have been making me cringe and have been making, and Asal actually initially made these slides. Please stop referring to eggs as chicken periods. Now, I know that, Gary, you actually did this in your speech, so I'm not specifically calling you out here. I did this for years too.
It was humor. It was humor. I used a lot of sarcastic humor.
Right, I know. Right, and I actually this is something I want to get into when we discuss this. But it is factually wrong. Chickens are not mammals, rather. Their productive systems work differently to ours. So then it's not called a period. It's not essentially a period. They are already well aware that they are eating all kinds of parts of animals, insides and outsides of animal body parts. The issue is that this is a health argument and not an ethical argument. Minimizing the animal rights movement down to Viagra or vanity, something to think about, right? When you say that vegans have better sex, what message are you sending? Would you say that about, in the case of any other injustice, would you be talking about this shit? Would you be saying that non-racists have better sex? You should stop abusing children because you'll be able to have sex for longer. Now I know that there's like a health aspect to this given that you're eating a plant-based diet when you're vegan, but it is just really, really cringy when people are standing on the street saying we only fuck vegans. In my point of view, that's really not what we should be telling people in order to get them to go vegan. Eat my pussy, not animals. That's literally what it says on one of those signs. By the way, I'm not like vehemently like protesting this necessarily by making this point. I'm just sort of being honest about something that if I heard someone during outreach saying this, I would cringe.
I was gonna say, it's a story about this. One of the activists in Italy years ago, she told me a story that there was this guy that told her that he would go vegan, you know, and he did it for her basically, and then he faked being an activist, and he also faked being vegan, and then he literally went vegan to eat her pussy, basically, you know. But he wasn't vegan though.
So, for those who didn't hear, Stefano just shared a scenario where somebody actually did go vegan for sex.
Yeah.
So
he gave up everything after that.
yeah, but
He was an activist, and it was outreaching people.
So this person was doing outreach at a cube
Yeah.
and acting like they were vegan in order to sleep with girls.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So a case where this backfires on us. Going back to the dog comparisons also, excuse me, I can hear murmuring in the back, it's really distracting. Another thing about the dog comparisons is that that can backfire in your face too. When people say, well, I don't really care about dogs. If I was in Vietnam, I'd eat dogs too. Then what? What are you supposed to say to that? All right, so now we're going to get into three core principles that we have within AV when it comes to outreach. This is a summarized version of our outreach protocol. This makes it really easy for you to understand. And 4 control points. This empowers you. So the core principle that we have, the number 1 principle, as you probably have gathered so far, is to hold non-vegans accountable. In our society today, ample information exists on the subjugation of animals. There is plenty of information out there already. And it is widely recognized that non-vegans exploit other animals to death. People already know that to some degree. Why do we show footage to people? Because the individuals who have been exploited to death in the footage that we have need to be front and center in society. People need to be faced with it and reminded with it as a matter of context for the outreach interactions, or at least just to be confronted with it if they don't interact with us at all. They still need to see it to be reminded on their way to work or wherever they're going. That's important, but just as a reminder, because they're not going to be confronted with that. But people already sort of know in the back of their minds that humans are it's not new information necessarily to say, you're exploiting animals. Okay. What is lacking in society is accountability, though. Not even most vegans will hold non-vegans accountable. So who is going to hold non-vegans accountable for this? It's the number 1 thing that is lacking in society when it comes to addressing this issue. It's not information, it's accountability. Okay, our task is to confront people with the contradiction between claiming that other animals deserve our respect and acting in ways that undermine that ethical principle. We place ourselves in the victim's position in order to acutely grasp the realities of any injustice. So if we look at a rape situation, we don't look at how the rapist felt and what they were experiencing. And if we do, we don't really care too much about that as much as we care about what the victims were experiencing. And that's what we go by when we assess the injustice and how right or wrong it is. And that's how simple it is when it comes to this. This not only fosters empathy, but also highlights the urgency of taking action against it. It is fundamentally critical to do this in the case of the animal holocaust. People most effectively comprehend the consequences of their non-vegan life when they can imagine themselves in the victim's situation. Notice how many times I've mentioned accountability and being in the victim's position? These are key things that will make you successful in outreach. That's why I'm hammering it into your heads for a reason. Core principle number 3, call to action. It is not enough for people to simply agree with the principle of veganism. What's not to agree with anyway? They must take immediate action against animal exploitation. Only through decisive action will they understand that merely thinking about veganism or trying is insufficient. They need to make a firm choice to respect other animals as individuals and act accordingly. And if they were the one being heinously exploited, they would also need this principle to be enacted on their behalf, right? So when it comes to the things that you can control, because we get asked a lot, you know, how do you convince, like some people just don't go vegan, so how do you, you know, like back to what I was saying before, you can't convince everybody. You're never going to have 100% success. So in order to be empowered as an activist, you should just focus on what you can control. You can't even confirm 100% if someone is going to go vegan, even if they say they are going to do it. Because in order to be completely accurate about our results, we need to hire private investigators to follow people around after our interactions with them. And that is not only unethical, it's impractical and it would be expensive. Focus on what you can control, and those things are what you say, how you say it, who you say it to, and how long you say it. Number 1, stick to tried and true principles. Stop trying to be the new and start being the tried and true. If what you think as a theory works doesn't actually work in practice, you need to be humble enough to say, I got it wrong this time. Avoid distractions. Oh, what about this? What about that? The whataboutism game is very common in non-vegans. What about this example? What about this situation? Avoid distractions. Again, you're in control of the conversation. That's the next point. Stay focused on justice for animals. Do not get dragged into side topics. The truth is extremely simple. And guide the conversation. Do not let others guide it. It's really important that you're the one driving the conversation because, like I said before, there's only one person in the interaction that's controlling the interaction. Always. Make sure that's you. How you say things is also important. Maybe not as important as what you say, but it is still very important. Assertiveness is extremely important. I actually gave credit to, I'm not going to put you on the spot, an activist sitting here with us, very assertive, and I was just amazed and blown away by how assertive they were with an outreach interaction. I went over there and I said, that was phenomenal. The way you dealt with that person was fantastic. And that's what I love to see, making sure you know how to stand your ground. Don't let people walk all over you and make a mockery out of this issue. When the conversation is over, we are done here. Use the correct tone in your voice. Oh, this conversation is over, and walk away. Okay, honesty. And so in the way you're saying things, are you sounding honest? Are you being honest? And appropriately representing the victims, right? In the way that you are saying things. Speak clearly and truthfully. Don't sugarcoat reality. It's the largest and most atrocious injustice on earth. And the victims need your voice. Be respectfully firm and always speak in the same way that you would want to be spoken for if you were in their position. When I say respectfully firm, it's clear that we're not there to be assholes and just own people. But at the same time, right, we have to be extremely firm with people. Okay, now who you say it to is, again, it's part of this is making sure that you're assessing whether that person's reachable or not. So focus only on the reachable people. Focus on people who are open to listening. Not every outreach interaction is worth your energy. After addressing 3 objections, then you will get a good idea of where you stand with someone. So let's say they go into one argument, you address it, but they don't seem to be listening to your response. It's not convincing them. So they bring up another one, and it's like they just ignored the fact that you addressed the first point. So they move on to the next one, right? Then you address that squarely, and then they just completely ignore the fact that you have just irrefutably responded to what they have said, and yet they move on to another one. 3rd chance. That's how I see it. This is your last chance, right? Address that argument. And if they bring up another one, you know what? This is going around in circles. You don't seem to be listening. I've addressed every single one of your arguments. I think we're done here. The best message you can send to non-vegans who are not listening in that situation is to walk away, because that sends the message that at least at one point in your life, a vegan wasn't willing to put up with your bullshit. That's a much stronger message to send than having the most perfect the perfect response to their arguments. Ben made a great video about this. You know, how many times do you find yourself getting dragged into an argument like such as crop deaths? Yes, but you still kill animals when you eat broccoli. And then you find yourself responding, yes, but you actually kill more animals because the animals you eat, they eat a lot of plants. And what do you think happens when those plants are being farmed? In fact, most of the crops are actually fed to the animals. Do you think it convinces those kinds of people most of the time? It doesn't. Do you notice how they just go, nah, and they move on to the next thing? So is it really about having the perfect argument to respond with? Or is it about knowing whether you're speaking to someone who's reachable or not? Because this is a very simple truth, you know? And again, it is important to have the good arguments to respond with, right? But only if they're going to listen. And after you've given them 3 strong responses, that's enough to know that they couldn't fuck with you. They lost, and that's fine, and you can move on because you're not going to waste any more of your time. That's really powerful stuff. And also how long you say it. Actually, I haven't finished this point. Let me just read this. There are plenty of people who are willing to act, spend your time with them. Yeah, I mean, this is, again, this organization would not be at this point if we were just, you know, struggling to find anybody who would be willing to go vegan. Andre, you just shared a great story in Oslo, Norway. I'd like you to share that during the Q&A about how people seem to come to the cubes who have been held accountable at previous cubes. And since that is what we claim to be the most effective seed to plant in a person, the results that you're finding is that those people come back and they've been bothered by this truth for a while now, that they're more open to the message the second time. Because it's irrefutable, and we did just stick to the ethics. We didn't get into these side points that they could go, you know, ruminate for days in their heads thinking, well, but I heard about this study and I heard about this environmental fact, and you know, this is irrefutable. So that's definitely going to sit with them, and then the next time they are confronted with this, that might be the breaking point for them.
It might be the shame, because when you are there, they might feel like you are shaming them, but when you're no longer with them, and they still feel that shame every time they're like making a choice or whatever, that kind of sits with them, and that's the job.
Right. Yeah. And so, okay, that's a good point too. A lot of people say you shouldn't be shaming people. That's not a good approach. And while I say we're not actually there necessarily to shame people, but you should be ashamed. Yeah. How else should you feel about being responsible for the most atrocious injustice on earth? Other than ashamed and guilty and disgusted with yourself. So when people say, oh, you're making me feel guilty, I don't even back off when that happens. I go, well, that means you're a sane person. Your heart and your brain seem to be functioning.
And like these questions are just basic questions of how they feel when they see this, and I think that shows perfectly well how people already know that it's wrong to do
Right.
Because I didn't hold them accountable or something. I just asked them how they feel about this. So yeah.
That's actually a really good point. So Patricia's saying that upon getting into only the first or second question in the flowchart that we have, the person said to Patricia, "You're here to shame people," which is, number one, a form of gaslighting, and number two, points out the obvious guilt that they're feeling. They know they are feeling ashamed in that moment, and by also undermining your approach by saying that you're just here to shame people when you've actually just asked some reasonable questions. So again, let's move on. So how long you say things is also important. Even if someone sounds convinced, please don't talk to them for too long about this. I've done this mistake myself, where because they're listening and because they seem to be changing, I keep going on and on and on, and I want to drive all the points home. Yeah, did you know this and did you know that, blah, 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 and I just keep going on and on. And then by the end, I feel like in sales we'd call it overselling. And also what it does is it implies that this is an extremely complex topic, that they feel they may need to go home and research for longer. They may need to do more and more homework about, oh, this is a really large, complex topic, seemingly. But it's not. So keep it simple, because you want people to digest it and adopt it immediately. And they will do that most likely if they see it to be a simple thing. Disengage with trolls quickly. Okay? A troll is someone who's just there to get a rise out of you, to essentially undermine the movement. Don't let that happen. Okay? Trolls are ignored at Cubes of Truth. What we do if they show up and try to eat animals in front of us or talk shit is we let them do their thing, and whatever attention they create, because usually other members of the public will be like, what's going on here? There's slaughterhouse footage, but then there's people eating animals in front of them trying to get a rise out of them. So like, ooh, it's a spectacle. Ooh, what's going on here? And they stand around like, ooh, there's something going to go down here probably. And so then what do? We capitalize on those people who are standing around for entertainment purposes and approach them. And we have outreach interactions with them. And then in turn, the trolls work for us.
Say, we do not only get attention then because people see them and stop at the cube, we get the attention also online then, if we use it as a...
Right.
So
Okay, that's a solid...
That's an edge, like a case where it might be okay to...
Right, so, look, obviously there's nuance in things I'm saying. So Oliver just pointed out that in some cases you may want to try your luck with them, and it's sort of like the 3 strikes you're out policy that we would be using in that case, where you would ask them, okay, how do you feel about animal exploitation? Well, I'm just going to McDonald's right now. Really? Do you really feel like animals deserve to be disrespected by you? So you try your luck with them, and if they continue on with their nonsense, then you can just move on. Another thing is if you're recording your outreach, what Oliver was saying is that you can put this online and then people see this interaction, and because of the drama, people like to watch drama, and that might get people to consider that, oh shit, I'm actually on the side of the non-vegan and that team sucks. All right. The flowchart has 9 steps, and it is best to follow them from 1 step through to 9, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But use your best judgment and common sense on how to maneuver through the steps. Sometimes they will bring something up, and that may be a good reason for you to bring up, say, step 4 from the initial interaction that you've started. So maybe they say something about what they believe veganism to be, and then you may want to open up, well, do you know what the definition of veganism is? So you may want to skip to step 4, but then don't miss step 2 and 3. Make sure you bring that back. You will get better at maneuvering through these and knowing how to make sure you get these points across and these questions across the more that you do this. It just takes practice, but it's very important. All of these points have been put together very carefully for you. So don't forget the importance of these. Don't think that these things are just optional questions or points. You should be getting all of them out. Read the room and pay attention to nuances and do not sound like a robot. This is not a script. Use your personality, use your timing, use your best judgment. There are different ways of saying the same points. For example, how does this footage make you feel? Was one way we used to say it. I think it's better now to say, how do you feel about humans exploiting other animals? Because it gets to the point more effectively. But you can still drive an extremely effective conversation home, starting with that. I've done it many times. It's the full context of the interaction that matters the most. If already expressing emotions verbally, don't ask, how does this footage make you feel, if they're standing there crying. So use your best judgment on that too. In that case, I would say, I can see that this makes you feel upset. And then I would skip to, in that case, you don't need to ask a Socratic question. You can just make a statement because it's obvious that they're upset. So then I would skip to step 2 and say, do you agree that we should respect animals? Of course, if they're crying, of course we should, then you'd move on to step 3. All right. And so now I'm going to go through the flowchart. So step 1, how do you feel about exploiting other animals? This is about qualifying the person that you're speaking with and also explaining, kind of what we're there for, what the message basically is. It's getting straight to the point because we want to qualify whether the person is open or not. And you will know this pretty much instantly. We don't want to waste our time. So this is a very good way of making sure you don't waste your time. Begin with assessing their mindset about animal exploitation. Determine if they are open to honest reflection or if they're defensive about the ethical inconsistency of their views and choices. In order to explain what's happening on the screens a little bit further, we would say we are showing the most common forms of exploitation. The most common forms of exploitation. Notice how I didn't even mention animals there? Other animals being exploited for their flesh, breast milk, eggs, skins, etc. Just so we're on the same page, exploitation means using someone for your purposes. Now, it's important that you explain exploitation. The word exploitation is extremely important to use. It's very important to use because it does describe the issue. But then some people don't understand the word. So explain it. Using someone for your purposes is a very quick and easy way to explain it, and people usually understand that. All right, step 2. Do you agree that we should respect other animals? And this is establishing the position of the person you're talking to. Set a foundation of mutual understanding and gain a clear stance on their values around respecting animals. This way you can repeatedly bring the conversation back to their own stated beliefs, not yours. Pointing out the conflicts between their words and their actions. Step 3, can you truly respect animals if you still consume their flesh, milk, and eggs? This is an acknowledgement of contradiction. Are they an honest person and willing to be honest about their actions, right? So expose the hypocrisy in claiming to respect animals while being responsible for their exploitation, the worst exploitation on earth. The strength of this principle lies in making this contradiction unmistakably clear, forcing them to confront the gap between their views and their actions. Do you feel this would be acceptable to excuse or justify exploiting you? Okay, step 4. Do you know the definition of veganism? Set the foundation. It's important that you explain the definition of veganism to people, because most times when I ask people, do you know what it means? They'll say, oh, it means you don't eat meat and you don't eat like dairy products and stuff like that. So they think it's a diet. That's why it's important for us to say it's defined as the ethical principle rejecting animal exploitation, not just a dietary or identity or a lifestyle choice. Educate them on the true meaning to prevent and dismantle misconceptions. It's the ethical principle that humans should live without exploiting other animals. It's not a diet lifestyle, or identity. And it addresses the supremacist mindset that other animals exist for us to use. That's the longer explanation, but the shorter explanation is the definition that I gave you earlier. Humans should live without exploiting other animals. Short and sweet. Step 5, do you feel that there is anything preventing you from going vegan? Important question. You want to draw out any objections or excuses they have to doing this. So you address the objections and you don't leave anything, you leave no stone unturned, so to speak, okay? Encourage them to share any barriers they may feel about going vegan, allowing space for them to voice insecurities or misconceptions. Then focus on challenging the validity of the excuse itself, keeping the conversation on track and removing any attempt to deflect from accountability. Identify all objections. Do you feel there is anything else preventing you after you address previous, objections that they've brought to you? Testing open-mindedness. If the objection was not an issue for you, would you go vegan today? For example, I don't think I can get enough protein. If protein wasn't an issue for you, would you go vegan today? This is a great test question because usually they're full of shit. They're not really worried about protein. So why get into the science and the vegan athletes when they're not even actually genuinely wanting that information from you, as if that information isn't already in front of them on the internet? It also shows that if they are willing to change and we can just address the protein thing, well, then I am willing to work with you and show you how you can get enough protein. I'll give you the correct information. But are they willing to change right now? Step 6, do you know the number one benefit of being vegan? This determines the character of the individual and really determines it. It reveals their hypocrisy and evaluates their willingness to align their actions with their ethical values. This step shows whether they have the integrity to accept responsibility and make a change, or if they are simply seeking rationalizations to continue exploiting animals. So the way that we explain this, when they say, because like I said, they will usually say it's healthier or it's better for the environment. Again, proving we don't need to be talking about these things to people. Most people already know this. Most people say that, by the way. And for those of you who have been doing outreach for a long time, I know you can agree with me. What is the number one benefit of being vegan? For them, pointing at the screens, you'll no longer be the reason that they're exploited to death. And for you as an individual, when you say that you're against exploitation, you'll no longer be a hypocrite. You'll no longer be responsible for this. This won't be happening because of you anymore. Step 7, if you were in their position, how fast would you want this injustice to end? This really does drive home the urgency. Help them to empathize and understand the severity of the issue and the urgency of the issue by imagining the situation from the victim's perspective. Almost any argument and objection can be dealt in this way. So, I used to do these training workshops where I would essentially do, most of it would be a Q&A, where people go, hey, Paul, how do you respond with, God says it's okay. How do you respond to that? And I'd find myself going, well, you can say this and you can say that. And then I just thought to myself, all of this is just encouraging more of a debate culture and missing the point. Most of the time, it can be squarely addressed by just simply putting them in that perspective of the victim's position and saying, well, if I was to use that excuse or reason to justify exploiting you to death, would you find that acceptable? So almost any objection and argument can be dealt with sufficiently by asking them if that objection or argument would be acceptable if they were the victim. Step 8 is how many animals should be exploited for you from now on? Should it be 0 or more than 0? So you're offering the solution here. Show them that veganism is the only way to align their actions with their ethical values, eliminating any lingering complicity. Veganism allows them to live authentically. It reflects the respect that they claim to have for other animals. Step 9, and this is the final step. So, vegan from now? Because usually they'll say, to answer that question, they'll say 0. Most people know that the answer to that question can only be 0. So they'll say 0. It should be 0. So, vegan from now? Important question. And this is where they'll bring up any other objections that they may have. Yeah, I'll try my best. It's usually the response you get. I'll try, I'll think about it, I'll do my best. And I'm going to show you an example of how this happened in Amsterdam last year during One Damn Month. And he said that, right? And then I went into, hold on a second, if you're in the victim's position, would you find that acceptable if I said, I'll try, I'll think about it. Eventually, I'll get to liberating you. He said no, and I said, okay, well, why would you make any kind of compromise on these innocent beings? Do you think that they deserve that kind of response from you? He said, no. I said, okay, so vegan from now? Yes. I promise, he said. Okay, well, I actually feel like you're being honest. Now, to prove he was being honest, he showed up and joined the cube the next day or the day after. I saw him jump in the cube and I'm like, I recognize that guy. And then Marcus was like, that's the guy you outreached. So the call to action is to urge them to make a definitive commitment to stop viewing animals as means to human ends. Challenge them to embrace veganism and ask them to defend animals by also speaking out against this injustice. Starting now, this is also about being active, not just being a passive vegan. So make sure you get this message across to everybody. Please also speak up for them, defend them, like I'm doing with you right now. And that's as quick and simple as you need to say it, by the way. This is not just food for thought, it's a call to action. There is no acceptable reason for you to not be vegan as of right now. For as long as you are not vegan, this will be happening because of you pointing at the screens while you say that. This is an example of something you can say, very powerful thing you can say. The next step is to speak out. Use your voice to defend animals against human supremacism, just as you would want to be defended if you were in their position. And that's the end of the slides.
Leave human rights issues out of the animal rights category. It doesn't belong here. And they're the ones suffering the most. They're the most abused, the most tortured, the most murdered. Focus on them. And think about this too. If we ever got down and sat down at the table of peace and justice and we brought every issue to the table, gay rights, women's rights, trans rights, black rights, run down the list, bring everybody to the table, who would be exploited still? Because you'd be allowed to not be a vegan at that table, and if the discussion went on long, like 6 hours, and you wanted to eat during this discussion, you'd be allowed to bring dead animals there. You'd be allowed to have dead animals on your shoes too. But try at that table to say gay people don't deserve to be married. You'd be tossed out. Try to say that trans people shouldn't be allowed to be in the military if they want to be. You'd be kicked out. Try to say a woman shouldn't have the same job as a man and get paid the same as a man. You'd be kicked out. Who gets left out always? The animals. Put on the back burner, literally and figuratively. We need to focus on them always. So that's where my activism ended up, is 100% animals. And you've heard me in some of my interviews over the years express this point. I'm tired of the human rights movement being hypocrites. And I'll end this with just one final point. The reason I say hypocrites, and it's true, not that anybody here is challenging that, but just so you understand how to explain it best, humans are demanding life, liberty, and happiness, which they refuse to give to the cows, pigs, chickens, turkeys, goats, and sheep. Run down the list. That hypocrisy nauseates me. They're demanding something that they refuse to give to somebody else in need, somebody else in a worse place than they are.
Yeah, and I think the way I interpret your sentiments on this, and it hasn't changed over the years. I think you've just become more emboldened in how you feel about this. But I interpreted this, and I still interpret this as human rights, or all of the human rights issues out there are essentially predicated on standing up for the marginalized. And it is sickening and maddening, to say the least, that they just completely miss the point of the most marginalized beings on the planet. If you're really sticking up for the most marginalized, if you really want to make a difference for who is marginalized, then you really have no business talking about marginalized groups while completely ignoring the most marginalized group in the world. I think that's where your frustration comes from, and I share that.
Perfectly said. And yes, a lot of frustration after 29 years. Seen a lot, seen too much, seen the real face of human beings.
Yeah.
Spoke to 60,000 people face to face in my lecture tour. I saw it all. And as I say this, the majority of my talks were wonderful. Okay, people did listen, but there was a segment. Now, the stats that I got over the years were I was averaging 200 lectures every year, and only 15 turned into a Jerry Springer show, a crazy, outcome, which is a hell of a ratio, 185 great talks. And I'm not saying I turned every student in 185 classes vegan, I did not, but 185 classes, we had a respectful discussion. They wanted more information. They were thinking about the issue. But those 15 that blew up on me, it built up on me over the years. And somebody I was talking to during the break said she gets frustrated sometimes and angry. It's okay. This is the toughest issue on this planet, trying to convince somebody to not exploit a chicken. This is a tough issue, and it's going to happen. And even though people look up to me, I appreciate that. I lost it a lot on people. I never started it, but I finished it. I always finished it, and I had some crazy, crazy scenes that you guys would just flip out about if you want to hear some stories.
Well, I actually want to specifically get into what you think about everything that we just talked about, everything I just presented and all those points in the...
Honestly, it makes me really proud. It makes me know that people were listening. When I was out there doing this, pretty much I was a solo activist. There wasn't many people in the movement even supporting me. I was an outcast. I was a pariah. Oh, Gary's too radical. He says things that are scaring people. Meanwhile, the professors keep bringing me into their classrooms. I used to tell all these organizations that refuse to help sponsor my tour. It costs money to travel, airline tickets, hotels, rental cars, and they say, oh, Gary, I just can't be associated with you. That's funny, because the animal agriculture professors at Ohio State bring me in. The people that are killing animals actually bring in the radical vegan. Why are you afraid? I mean, I could understand if I was getting kicked out of schools and nobody wanted to listen. I'd say, well, maybe I should change my approach. Maybe I should change my style. But they were clamoring to bring me in. There were times I had to turn down lectures because I couldn't make it fit into my schedule. One year I did 263 lectures. If I could physically get from point A to point B, I would do it. I give 5, 6, 7 talks in one day. I'm talking 60 to 75-minute lectures. Start at 7:30 for the first class, finish at 8 o'clock, jump in the car and drive 7 hours from New York to Akron because I got an 8 o'clock class in the morning. Sleep on the side of the road for 15 minutes because my head was bobbing. I had the 3 head bob rule. When the third one, I'm like, okay, pull over. I sleep for 15. Okay, go. If I could get there, I would get there. So, yeah, I kind of forgot my point.
No,
Not even high either. What was the second? Usually, that's why I never got high before a lecture, by the way. But I was high 30 seconds after a lecture, like 2,000 times.
I think the point was the frustration that we all
Oh, man, it was rough.
But one thing I want to bring up, because I don't think a lot of people understand this, is that, I mean, I got this, but a lot of people seem to not understand this. You said this to me last night. You didn't really know what the most effective way to do this was. You were figuring it out, right?
I was testing everything on the fly. I hate discussions and conferences and meetings and having meetings about the conferences and let's debate the discussion we just had at the last conference. I was a man of action. I wanted to do something, and I figured it out as I was going along. Now, you hear about all the success stories, you see all the speeches out there. There were parts of the speech that didn't make it into the final speeches that did not work. I would do it and say, I'm like, it didn't come out the way it should have, and nobody responded positively. So the point is, get out there and do it. Don't have a meeting about it. Don't sit there and plan it out too much. Go out and say it. Work it out there and say, you know what? That was almost perfect. Next time I'm going to add this to the mix. And next time I'm going to say this. In fact, Paul helped me with something I was going to use at these cubes. I told him I really want to focus on baby stealing. As I analyze all the horrible things that we do to animals, at the top of my list I got baby stealing right now. In fact, I got the murder, like the 7th worst thing that we do to animals. But I wanted to say, you know, take a black woman, a white woman, an Asian woman, Latino woman, Jewish woman. If they're all pregnant and they give birth, well, whose baby is it? Now, I envision people saying, theirs, of course. I really envision them saying, of course. So, yeah, and I'm going to say, of course. So when a cow, a pig, or a chicken has a baby, whose baby is it? And Paul says, you should say yours. Whose baby is it? Yours? I'm like, that's tight. That's really tight. And then you could even add, I was even thinking of adding, I don't know if I should, but the meat industry, the meat eaters. It's just outrageous to me that we would acknowledge that every woman on this planet owns her baby. That baby is hers, but all of a sudden the cow has a baby and the baby's taken away. Obscene beyond belief to me. And then the other things would be the mutilations, the confinement, the murder's probably a relief to them the more you think about it in this day.
Right, so that's a very good point, that we focus on the killing of animals far too much in the outreach we do, right?
It's not the killing, it's everything else is the problem.
You're right, I think that's why we have made such a strong point about focusing on the exploitation or the subjugation or the oppression, or the supremacy.
I think I know what I wanted to say before, what I forgot was, when I was talking to Oliver yesterday, he said something and it didn't click until after. He said that we took your speech to the streets. It's funny because when I was on the streets in the 90s, I took my street protest to the classroom. I did the opposite, but so it's the exact same thing. I got tired of being the street protester where to me, and I wasn't doing a cube of truth. We didn't have, you know, TV set show and this stuff. I had a bullhorn and people are going to the circus and I got 10 seconds. I'm like, they're beating elephants in the circus, please don't go to the circus. Hang on, they're beating these elephants in the circus. And it's like, damn, if I only had more time. And then I got into the classroom, like, well, I got 60 minutes now, and you saw the result of that. Now I could break it down. So same thing that we're doing. And you guys are doing fantastic work on the street. This is education-based activism at its finest. That's what I built my reputation on. Once I ran the gamut of activism, keep in mind, I tried everything. I did it all. Direct action, I freed the mink, and I won't take that back. I think direct action is pretty solid, except there could be a penalty at the end where you're put away in jail, so it's risky for most people. A lot of people don't want to be there. I tried civil disobedience. Banned from countries. Banned from 5 countries. Civil disobedience, which, by the way, I don't think is an effective tactic in this day and age anymore. I think it's lost its luster. I think at one time, obviously in the 60s and 70s, it used to be a great tactic. I just don't think it has any positive effect anymore. Lobbying,
I agree with that.
I think is garbage. I don't think you can pass a law that people don't understand why the law has been passed. Plus, you're not going to get anyone to enforce it anyway, so I see a lot of groups going, oh, Gary, you know, we should put laws on the books. Now, the laws come at the end when everybody understands it, everybody gets it.
Well, to that point, there are animal cruelty laws that are always being broken by people. And in fact, many activists focus on trying to call out facilities like factory farms and things like that out for not following animal cruelty laws, and it never seems to get them shut down.
And by the way, there's a term, you know, I don't know if you noticed in my speeches, I never use the phrase factory farms. I hate when we focus on that because it gives them the belief that, oh, well then I'll go get some free range animals. And you wonder why the free range, cage free, all that bullshit is so popular because people were forcing factory farms being evil. And guess what? Nobody would justify a factory farm. Not even the harshest meat eaters, like, oh, that's pretty cruel. And then you'll find hunters saying, well, that's why I go hunt and kill my animals myself. Like, I still got a problem whether you stuff 80,000 chickens in a building or you kill one chicken in your backyard. It's the fact that we think we have a right to kill that chicken, that we own that chicken.
Right.
The chicken belongs to us. So
Right.
would always avoid saying things like factory farms. It's just the killing of animals is wrong. The exploitation of animals is wrong. Viewing animals as your property, that is the injustice right there. And I don't care how it happens.
Let's talk about haters a little bit. Yesterday you said something really profound. You said if haters want to get rid of us.
Yeah, there's a lot of people in this movement hating on me. In fact, I was doing that. I was in Frankfurt last few weeks. I did the sanctuary speech, the fundraiser that a lot of people, I think, saw. And there were activists out there who didn't like my position on human rights, and Gary supports violence and all this stuff, so they wanted to boycott the sanctuary fundraiser. Now, I could understand if the money was going to me, honestly. I said, well, okay, I get they want to give me money. It wasn't for me. It was for Sasha Farm, a sanctuary. It's for animals that you claim to care about. What are you boycotting this for? Show up, make a donation, and I'll tell you what, even put it online. Call me an asshole. Say you hate me. Just would you pay the $119 so I can send it over to Sasha Farm? I don't understand this movement. But if you want to get rid of me, you want to silence me, well then stop killing fucking animals. Convince people to stop fucking killing animals and I will go away. I would love to go away. I just disappeared for 10 years. It was very peaceful. It was very calm. If people want Paul to silence Paul and me or whoever else, well, then convince everyone to stop killing animals, and I'd love to go away, honestly. It's a simple thing. But
I think yesterday you said it differently. You said, if you want me to go away, then this injustice has to end. Otherwise, it's just...
There you go.
You're not going to have much love.
That was in the moment. It was the freestyle. I don't remember everything. Dude, I was telling somebody the funniest thing was when I was planning on coming here, I feel rusty. I'm not as sharp as I used to be. And I started watching some of my old clips. And people misread me all the time. They think I'm a narcissist, like I'm at home watching all my shit. I put it on, and I'm watching it going, wait, what? What did I say? What the fuck? Okay, I know why people follow me. That's pretty tight. I don't remember any of this. I didn't remember 95% of the speech. And even though my wife, Erica, and I actually broke up last August, we still live together, great friends. And I yell out, Erica, you remember when I said this? She goes, Gary, I remember it all. You're the one that doesn't remember. So I was watching a bunch of stuff, and I was blown away. I'm like, man, I came up with some good stuff back in the day.
Yeah, I mean, you know, again, I just want to say to everybody, it's a true honor to be having this moment right now and to be sitting with you. It's a full circle situation. And I personally feel really empowered by this as an activist, as a leader, and for everybody who's able to get value out of you being a part of this action. I also think that you just said something about people thinking you're a narcissist. What speaks to that profoundly is the fact that you're joining this action. You're going to be out there on the streets with us for 31 consecutive days, and then one day rest, and then back at it again for 8 straight days in Amsterdam after we do another workshop. Yeah. And I'd like to know, in fact, I think everybody's wanting to know what you have to say at that workshop after being out in the streets with us for 31 days doing this outreach that we're doing. Yeah.
And me being a solo activist, which is what I did for the majority of my activism career, it wasn't about narcissism, it was about action. I got tired of showing up. So in the 90s, from 96 to about 2000, I was like everyone else. I went to every animal rights conference there was, and I started obviously recognizing the same group of people. Hey, what's up, Bill? Hey, Bob. Hey, Jillian. Oh, well, we just traveling around the country, getting together and patting each other on the back. What the fuck is this? When are we going to do something? And by 2000, I said, I will never attend another animal rights conference again, and I have not. I said, I am going to go out and do whatever I can do on my own. I got fortunate. The universe took care of me when it came to my activism. I kind of fell into the education angle because I was getting arrested a lot, 13 arrests in the late 90s. And if you followed the news in Michigan, you knew who I was because I was always in the news getting arrested for the animals. So Canton High School called me, based in Michigan. They said, hey, Mr. Yourofsky, you're always going to jail for the animals. You want to come to our school on Political Action Day and tell the students why? yeah, okay, sounds good. There's going to be 800 students. We're going to bring them down to the auditorium, and you can have 60 minutes. I'm like, okay, great. I didn't even prepare anything. It was extemporaneous, and to be honest, I expected to hear, fuck you, get a life, because that's all I ever heard on the street. So I stand up, I give the speech. It was about 30 minutes on veganism and 30 minutes on vivisection back then. It still obviously ticks me off to no end, but it really touched a nerve with me. So I talked about both, and as I finished, I'm standing up there, and I kind of put my head down and like, here comes the fuck you, get a life. And they stood up and gave me a standing ovation. Not saying this to brag, confused. 45 students that day kept me after school for 4.5 hours. I had to end it. I looked at my watch and I said, it's 8 o'clock. I got a dog at home. I got to get home and let my dog out. They were begging, thirsting for more. Tell me more, tell me more. A month later, I got a letter from the school saying, Mr. Yourofsky, we did a survey amongst the 800 students, and 100 of them said they were becoming vegan. That's a hell of a ratio for 60 minutes, 100 out of 800? You got to be kidding me. In fact, Canton High School was so good to me over the years, I'm not sure if you know this, they would let me call in and they would make announcements over the PA for my protest coming up. Gary's doing a protest at Dietrich Fern on Friday from 4 o'clock till 6 o'clock. You guys should head out there. And then I got a call from a professor at Oakland University, my alma mater, also based in Michigan. He invites me in. I go in with nothing prepared again, extemporaneous, and same thing, standing ovation. And I'm like, education, they don't know. You didn't know, Gary? You have to teach them. So then I started sending out mass emails to professors all over the country, asking, can I speak in their class? Don't think that you can't do what I did. Don't think that you can't be radical either. Do you know, in my 2-paragraph, I'm a man that gets right to the point when I want something like that. I said, can I come speak in your classes? I've been arrested 13 times. I support violence. I'm going to talk about ethical veganism. You know what I got back was,
amazing.
We've never met anybody so open and willing to talk about everything they believe in. You're a real activist. We only read about them. We've never actually met one. That sounds great. And I got into this is why I got mad at the movement for not supporting me. These professors keep bringing me in, and you're mad at me because of how I act, but the public that I need to reach is thirsting for this information. What's wrong with this picture? Stop being a politician. You just heard that part of the speech too. That's real shit. I gave them the honest answer. And listen, we talked about this. You don't have to agree with me. Don't say, I agree with Gary 100% of the time. You shouldn't agree with anyone on this planet 100% of the time. It's impossible. Even your partner in life, don't tell me you guys agree 100% of the time. So what? It doesn't mean we can't be friends and can't support each other. I don't understand the people that hate me. And the biggest irony is, do you know the majority of the people that hate me? Guess who fucking opened up their mind and made them vegan? Right here. I was told that all the people in Frankfurt that were trying to get me kicked out of the fundraiser, they're all Gary vegans. You got to be kidding me. The guy that showed you the light, that you're mad because he said something. And by the way, you know how many speeches I've given, how many interviews? I probably said 1 million words in my lifetime of activism. So you don't like 5,000 of them? You throw me out? There's more than 990,000 words that you like, but oh, he said that one thing. You don't think I can get emotional? I get angry. I go off sometimes and say things because I'm pissed off too. I'm not. You don't always have to maintain your cool. Try to, of course. I'm not trying to say go ballistic, but okay, there are times where you're confronting the worst atrocity that has ever existed, and sometimes the biggest dickheads on this planet. I can't always maintain my cool. I did most of the time, but yes, there were times I lost it too. And
I think one thing that's funny is when you said, like, even within a friendship, you should be able to tell your friend, fuck off. Yeah, go.
Me and my oldest friend.
Still be cool.
Me and my oldest friend, Darren, we've been friends since we were 8 years old, and I'm 54 right now. We tell each other to fuck off at least 3 or 4 times a year, and we're still like, why? You get mad at them sometimes. I'm like, And by the way, lost a good friend, if he's listening. So the reason why Sasha Farm is struggling so much is because after Dorothy Davies passed away, the matriarch of the farm, which this problem never would have been going on if she didn't pass, her husband, Monty, became a raging lunatic. And I stepped in to try to be a mediator. It is also funny that I used to be the infighter, and I can't stand anybody. The truth is, I actually want to mediate now. I'm like, can we just get along? Everybody, please, just calm down. So Monty says no one's listening to him. No one's respecting him at the farm. I said, really? Okay, so I go around, I interview Shara Jones, the animal care manager, and all the other employees and the volunteers. I want to get everyone's side. And I went back to Monty and said, hey, buddy. And he's been my friend for 29 years. I said, I hate to tell you something. You're wrong. It's on you. The source of chaos is you. But I wasn't being, I just said it that nicely. I'm saying, okay, why don't you retire like me? Okay, hang it up. After I'm done at the gym, I'll swing over, we'll smoke a joint, shoot the shit about the old days. Just fucking relax, man. You did it. You created this farm, you and Dorothy. Enjoy it. Let them take care of your baby now. So I can't believe you didn't take my side. I thought we were friends. Well, I thought that if we were friends, I can tell you when you're wrong. He wouldn't accept it. But this is the mentality of most people, especially in this day and age. In fact, you'll notice, at least in America, I noticed that black Democrats and black Republicans hate each other, no longer share their blackness. It's crazy. Vegans, and look at the vegan. Nobody, even people that believe in the same things don't even get along. This has to stop. It's okay to have disagreements and not throw somebody out and not hate somebody. And again, it's only natural to me to have disagreements. If somebody tells me they agree with somebody 100% of the time, either they're a liar or the person they're agreeing with is a liar. It can't happen. But you can agree on most issues, the essential issues, and that's what's important. And as vegans, we all agree that animals don't deserve to be exploited. Let's keep it there then, all right? We all work together.
Yeah, I think there is like a culture in the vegan movement of just throwing people in the trash. As soon as they say or do something that, like I expressed some things that make me cringe, and I know activists that do those things. And that doesn't change how much I respect them, how much I like them, and how much I would promote them, and etc. So we're allowed to disagree. I don't understand why we can't do that and also just get along and continue to move forward.
This has also led to what I term brain melt. My brain is only half there these days. I don't understand that people can't take criticism, or people have to throw somebody out, or what I'm dealing with the exploiters. It's like near the end of my 2014 lecture tour. In my head, as the arguments were arising at times, and I was going, what am I arguing about? I'm asking you not to rape, kill, and steal somebody's baby. What is there a fucking argument? Well, I don't even get this anymore. I don't, and again, keep in mind how long I've been involved in this. I don't want to discourage anybody who's new, and please prove me wrong. Show me that actually humans can be kind and can awaken from their stupor and can extend some decency to the animals we share this planet with. I love to be proven wrong. It's just, come see me after 29 years and tell me that you might not feel the same way I feel. I've seen a lot of progress and it's wonderful, but it's not fast enough for the victims. It's not okay. And I mean, when I'm on the road driving, you guys see it too. I'm driving down the road. I'm listening to Zeppelin. I'm jamming out. It's cool. I got Eminem on, and all of a sudden a slaughterhouse truck drives by.
Right.
I turn the radio off. What the fuck? I can't. I feel guilty enjoying myself right now at the moment.
Yeah.
We all feel this.
Yeah,
It's like,
totally.
it doesn't. When is it gonna end? When is this shit gonna stop already? And this is why too I get upset with the human rights stuff. Because I thought, I'll be honest, I thought after the gay rights movement had gained so much, and they have in most parts of the world, I understand in certain parts they're still hated. I thought, okay, finally, the animals, and then the trans came. I'm like, what's next then? The hermaphrodites after the trans? When are the animals going to be put up front? It's just the humans are the impediment. It's us blocking them, human rights issues block. And why, it's not that I don't understand why humans deserve equality, it's that you keep leaving the animals out. Well, then I'll tell you what, instead of focusing on gays and trans and putting animals and cows and pigs on the back, I'll tell you, why don't we start with cows and pigs and then we'll get to you guys later.
Well, that's
I'm not saying not to get to you, but we'll get to you later, just like you say we'll get to the cows later. I say get the cows now, then let's get to you. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, so I would say that's actually not a fuck human rights sentiment.
You're right.
I would say that
I can be a little dramatic.
No, but that's exactly how I've always interpreted your fuck human rights
It's probably.
sentiment. And it's just, fuck human rights is an emotional sentiment. It's like, I'm sick and tired of you dragging human rights into this shit.
Right.
That's basically where you're coming from, and I
You're
share
right.
that. And I also...
Paul is my interpreter.
No, I'm not doing this to
No,
save
I like
face,
this.
by the
No,
way.
I like this.
I'm doing this because...
This is the Key and Peele skit with Luther, with the anger translator.
Yeah, right. So, you know, we talked about what you say, how you say it, who you say it to, and how long you say it. So do you think that by using these guidelines, it essentially, like, do you get a feeling that this could help you with your outreach with individuals to not give your power away to people too much, to conserve your energy,
For sure.
to be able to do this more sustainably?
Absolutely. No, it was great advice, man. You like, it's like you tightened up all the things that I was talking about over the years. You use the important stuff, the victim's point of view. That was the highlight of my speech too. When I came up with that section, I'm like, this is gonna get them, and I think it did, because look what it did around the world. I think that opening part of the speech was the tightest part of my speech. And do I have regrets? Yeah, I don't think I was perfect by any stretch. I wish I would have taken out health and the environment. Every semester I wanted to, it started I'm like, I am fucking taking this shit out and I'm doing all ethics from now on. And then I tell the professors, by the way, upcoming, there's gonna be no, and they would, Gary, you have to do the health section. We've done surveys, that's their #1 favorite section, and then it's ethics. So the health gets them intrigued, and then you hit them with the ethics. I'm like, oh man, but it's just not the point of it. So I caved to that. But listen, I still got people to become vegan,
Absolutely.
but I still wish.
I think even Vegan Gain said that he initially was stimulated by your health points.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he said that.
I still wish I would have taken it out. And by the way, you brought up the hen periods. Okay, there are times. Okay, people don't know this. I have 2 people that I pattern my activism after, and I don't think anybody knows this. I told you earlier.
No,
what?
I'm gonna guess.
Oh.
Because you spoke on your outtakes, the extra features.
Oh, okay.
Malcolm X.
Yeah, Malcolm X.
And
So that's my militant side.
Yeah.
Early Malcolm X, by the way, not late Malcolm X. Early militant Malcolm X.
I don't know who the second one is. Though.
George Carlin,
Yeah,
the brilliant philosopher comedian. So all my humorous sections, the first thing I think, would George think this is funny? Yeah, George would like this. By the way, you should look up, George Carlin has a bit called Chickens Are Decent People. He was almost vegan near the end of his life. There was a restaurant in New York City called Candle Cafe. I used to go there every day when I was in New York. And I knew the owners, and as soon as I came in, Carlin had died that week, that semester. They said, Gary, you know George was coming in here 3 times a week. I'm like, no, he was finally coming around. But his chickens are decent people thing, he turns to the crowd, talk about a great question. He goes, right now, I'd like to know, name 6 things that make us better than chickens. And the crowd silently goes, see, you can't do it, because chickens are decent people. When was the last time you heard of a rooster coming home from a long day of work beating the shit out of his hen? Doesn't happen, because chickens are decent people. So, but there's truth in sarcasm. So if you notice my speech too, as I beat them down with Holocaust, slavery, and the mutilations, and all that information. And I'm tired of you talking a good game, and your coexist bumper sticker on your car, and your what would Jesus do fucking bracelets, right? I could see the students were like, no more, no. And I take them right to the fucking edge of the cliff, and I'd say, and you guys engage in bestiality. What's this stuff? You're obsessed with bird asses. You want to eat something that comes out of a bird's ass. You want to shove things into a turkey's ass. They're laughing and giggling, but there's truth in there, right? So I would play back and forth on that. So humor's okay to use too if you can squeeze it in.
Yeah.
Come up with a good little witty one-liner. But That was the basis of hen periods. I knew hens didn't have periods, but I came up with it. It just slipped out one night. It was probably high. I'm like, that's kind of funny. And I ran it by a few people. They were laughing. I'm like, I'm going to use this. This is just funny shit. And would you believe that only one time, 2,660 lectures, 60,000 people, only one person ever brought up what you said, you know, hens don't have periods. And I said, I'm like, that's the first time anyone ever called it out. So after that, actually, I don't know if this is on video. It might be in one of my Israeli talks from 2012. I started using the cloaca, and I would explain it's the pee hole, the poop hole, the vaginal fluid hole.
The excuses speech.
Oh, the excuses speech. And so, but then I would make a new challenge. I had a challenge where I said, if you guys think there's nothing wrong with eating an egg, I want you to go home after school today, and I want you to go to the bathroom. Not number one, number two. And don't flush. Then I want you to go to the refrigerator, grab an egg, and drop it in the toilet. Then if you even have the courage to reach in and take it out, and mind you, that's your shit that you won't even reach into, you're gonna really wanna eat it? And they're laughing again. I'm like, that's what you're doing with an egg? What the hell? How did this become food? At what point in history did we watch this bird shitting out something out of her ass and go, that's probably going to be good? I mean, it's just outrageous. But anyway, I know it moved on to the disgusting part that you didn't want, but sometimes.
Well, do you agree or do you disagree
I agree.
with that point?
Well, listen, you guys don't have 60 minutes.
But that's the other thing also, I think that roasting, even in the outreach interactions, has its place.
Okay, yeah, well, yeah. I mean, listen, I don't know what's going to work, which is why I use so many different parts of the speech, right? And I got students say, man, that opening part of the speech really got me. Or, hey, that health section really got me. Yeah. Or, you know, that dairy section, I didn't even consider what went on in a dairy farm. I didn't know what was going to work. And something else I wanted to say, because you said sometimes people came back and heard it and then got it. You know how many times a student came up to me and said, Gary, I hated you the first time I heard you. I was always invited back to the school, nearly 100% of the time. In fact, University of Central Florida, one of my main stomping grounds, I believe I had about 10 professors bringing me in every semester. So some students heard my speech 5, 6, 7 times. They'd come up and say, okay, I hated you the first time. I started to listen the second time, and you got me on the third one. I'm vegan. This is the 4th time. Do I have to sit here and listen to it again today? I said, you're vegan? And then they would quote, yeah, remember that you said in that speech, da, da, da. I'm like, okay, you can go. So, but sometimes people have to hear the message over and over. So keep that in mind. Even sometimes the ones that get really belligerent, sometimes those are the ones that felt the most guilty, which is why they were so belligerent, that they came back and said, man, I had a student at UCF, actually Central Florida, he came back the following year, heard me again, asked me to speak in the class. He goes, you remember me? I said, yeah, I remember you. Believe it or not, we had a big argument last semester. He goes, yeah, you were right. I'm vegan, man. I'm sorry. I gave him a hug. No, I'm serious. And again, I never went into a classroom angry. Unfortunately, I left angry. And I heard all the snide comments beforehand. They think I had supersonic hearing when I walked into a classroom. I don't care how big the room was. I had some big lecture rooms, 450 students. I hear, oh, the fucking vegans here today. I should have brought a hamburger in here today. I should have brought a deer head in today. Didn't make me, I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna get you. I'm gonna get you. I was determined. Now, it was after, because I think I ended most of my speeches with, so what's your excuse now? Because I laid it out, right? I mean, it was there. Because to me, if you heard my speech or watched Earthlings and you didn't get it, you were just an asshole. What's there not to get now? I broke it down, and in fact, as the speech came out of my head, it was like I was answering every question I knew they would have, which is something I also got from students. Did you know that as your speech went on, I had questions, I was even writing them down, and I was scratching them off. You answered every, yeah, I know. I was you. Stop acting like I came from a different universe and I came out vegan and wise about how to be nice to animals. I was you for 25 years. I know everything you're thinking. everything. What about God? Didn't God say it's okay? What about protein? What about B12? Hey, but animals don't think, they don't feel, but they're different. I heard the same shit. I thought the same things too until I just put my defenses down. I don't know why people are so afraid to look in the mirror and say, I messed up. Man, we all did it. Don't tell me it can't be done. We all felt guilty as shit when it finally hit us. Me too. I'm like, how did you miss this, man? You're sitting here walking around. I mean, I love animals. No, I love dogs. I love cats. I like squirrels. I like the bunny rabbits. I like the penguins. You notice, by the way, all the animals that people say they love are animals that we actually don't really exploit. It's easy to say you love penguins. Who the fuck eats penguins?
Well, cats and dogs. Well, penguins
Well,
do
I'm
get
just saying.
exploited, but yeah.
I get it, but for the most part, people walking around don't have penguin fucking shoes, right? They're not eating penguin sandwiches. So and I would tell them, it's easy to like the animals that you weren't taught to exploit. I'm talking about the ones that you're not giving any credit to, the cows, the pigs, the chickens, which, by the way, if you do want to rank the coolest of the animals, as I redo my list over the years, those really are the coolest animals. If you haven't seen the videos I did at Sasha Farm when I got the 600-pound pig and I'm rubbing his belly and he flips over, a 600-pound animal rolls on his back for me. You got to be kidding me, no way. It's just, they're amazing. The cows are so cool. In the one video I'm feeding big red apples. It was this bull that I adored over the years, and these animals are just, they're so amazing.
Beamer is amazing.
Oh man, Beamer. 1 in a billion cow, by the way. There's Beamer's on this video with me purring. I didn't know cows can purr either. I just dig animals. I don't know like detail. But
Is she an ox or a cow?
he's an ox.
Oh, sorry.
She's a he. He's amazing. He's just, I'm telling you, he's 1 in a billion animal. He's something special. But listen, I don't even care if they're not special. We know how it is. I don't care how cool they are, how uncool they are, how smart they are, how dumb they are. And I'm an honest guy. I'm sure there's dumb animals out there. I don't give a fuck. So there's dumb humans out there too. Yeah. I'm not saying light them on fire either. Like what does intelligence have to do with being nice to somebody? Especially when they have never exploited us. I mean, the least we can do for them is not exploit them back. These are creatures that have never done one thing horrible to us. And I love when you call out the people who want to play the victim. You got to be kidding me. We kill 1 billion cows on the planet every year, and you're upset? You're mad? They're being tortured and killed, and I'm sorry to bother you. I'm sorry to take you down from your little pedestal. But that's something else too that pissed off all the detractors, is when I said that I will no longer worship at the altar of humanity. I no longer put humans on a pedestal. In fact, I don't think there's any pedestal for us. The more I think about it, I think animals are gods. The more I think about it, I think animals are the real gods that people are always, playing make-believe with. Like, they're right here. These pure creatures that are just so amazing, especially the herbivore animals, which we talked about. Talk about going to another level, right? The zebras and the antelope and the hippos and the rhinos, and the giraffes, the sloths. They're just gone to another level more than the carnivore animals too, right? Yeah. They're the ones living completely in peace. I told you that I'm gonna start a new group, and it's gonna be called HO, herbivores only.
Well, I think the person that named dog probably knew what they were doing, because it's
God backwards.
Yeah. But yeah, another thing I wanted to bring up is, like, at the end of the interactions, we started doing this last year at our big 1-month campaign. We refused to shake people's hands or fist bump them or hug them unless they declared that they would be vegan as of this moment.
I like that.
Right?
Yeah.
And people would get offended by that sometimes, because they would reach out and we would be like, I'm not going to do that because I'm here to represent the animals, and would you want your victimizer to have their hand shaken in the face of everything we just discussed? And they sometimes get really offended. And one thing that we say to them is, it's interesting that you're more offended by me refusing to shake your hand than what you're responsible for.
I love it because, again, you're mimicking things that I did. I would never tell a student during Q&A, That's a good question. Notice how people love to do that and they think it's a good tactic. Oh, make your detractor seem like they'd ask me a question.
Game.
In fact, they would say something like, "Well, I thought God said it was okay to eat animals." I'm like, that's a stupid question, a stupid statement. But let me answer this. I would literally say that's stupid to them because it was stupid. It's fucking stupid as hell. So don't fist bump. Don't thank them. Don't congratulate them unless they've actually done something.
Right.
And speaking of questions, I was talking to you a lot. I'm sorry, what was your name again? Annika. Do you know the toughest question I ever had? And I still remember it. And mind you, I spoke at some major universities, Penn State, University of Michigan. I was at Harvard. Never had a good question there. 7th grader in Toledo, Ohio, Aurora Academy. They got about 250, 300 students in the auditorium. And he raises his hand, Q&A, and he says, Gary, man, I heard everything you said today. I believe everything you say today, and I want to become vegan. I do. What happens when I go home today and my mom says I can't? Now, if you've seen me over the years, you know how quick my answers are, right? I got 25 answers depending on how you ask me, from sarcastic to truthful. And I'm ready to, this is the only time I got stumped for about 30 seconds before I came up with something. And I walked out into the crowd. I pulled out a business card. I said, you can have your mom or your dad call me. That's my number on there. In fact, somebody give me a pen, and I said, this is Dr. Jerry Velasic. He's a doctor friend of mine. If your mom has concerns that you're going to fall apart or something, Jerry wants to help. I said, I can't hold you accountable now if mommy and daddy say no, but you got to make me a promise that as soon as you are able to become vegan on your own, you'll do it. So I promise. And then to kind of bring some humor, I was like, I made him 3 times. Like, promise. And everyone was laughing. Like, promise. And I gave him a hug. But it hit me there that, listen, focus on the kids when you can, but it hit me that if I'm not talking to mommy and daddy, I can't be here anymore. Because I would get tons of emails from the kids. I couldn't see on the email. They're like, I'm in tears right now. My mom made me eat steak tonight, and I don't want to. Can you help me, Gary? And then it put back, what the fuck am I going to do? I don't know what to do. And like the best advice I had was, you might have to get a job after school, babysitting, cutting lawns in the neighborhood. If you do that and you come up with 20 or 40 bucks, I will tell you how to get cheap vegan food, and you can do it on your own, whether it's bananas and potatoes and rice. I will come up with a plan that I've come up with people before, dirt cheap. I said, I don't know what else to say except I said, fight, scream, beg, do everything you can. Spit it out, throw it up. I mean, do what you can, but again, if they say no, you just have to do it as soon as you can. Yep. It's really, but so I went to the colleges from there, 100% of the time. But the coolest thing, the thing I lost, so I talked to 2nd graders, 3rd graders over the years, and they're so attached to the animals at that stage. I never had an argument from a kid. All my arguments came from adults. It's funny because the adults are always the ones telling me, oh, don't tell my kid that. You can't tell the kids this. They can't handle it. I said, sounds to me like you can't handle it. The kids are fine handling it. Every time I told them, they were a little shocked. They're like, oh my God, I don't want to do that. I said, I know, me neither. I was talking to a 2nd grade class, and I said, hi, my name's Gary. Again, I couldn't do the regular speech, tone down everything, don't use exploitation, they're not going to get it. I was really just good and bad. This is nice, this is mean. And I said, I'm a vegan. I explained it, and they said, and the one kid said, I'm vegan too, Mr. Gary. I'm like, oh my God, really? Is anyone else vegan? And they all put up their hands. And now I'm getting, I said, everyone's vegan? Yeah, I love animals too. I said, okay. Anybody see the movie Babe? Oh, I love Babe. He's my favorite. I said, I like Babe too. Anybody eat a hot dog recently? I love hot dogs. Oh. That's Babe. Oh no! And again, now the teacher looks at me, she's like, hey, you weren't supposed to tell him. I'm like, what do you mean? I can't tell him the truth. Another outrageous thing in our society. I can't speak the truth. I have to lie. So if I lied, I'd be a hero. But if I tell the truth, I'm a villain? You got to be kidding me. And think about all the lies we tell the kids. And not just what goes on to the animals, just to build Santa Claus, a tooth fairy, Easter bunny. Everything we tell kids is a fucking lie, and that's the travesty, not truth-telling. That's a blessing, but we wonder why we're all so fucked up when we grow up. We've been lied to our whole lives, and then we step out in the real world, and there's not Santa Claus and the tooth fairy, and hamburgers don't grow in hamburger patches, and people are like, oh my God, and people are freaking out all the time, have issues. Yeah, I'd have issues too if I was lied to my whole life and found out it wasn't like it is. It's just, but truth-telling is the best thing that actually can be done, and that's what I did. I told the truth. I never said things that people wanted to hear. I said things that they needed to hear. But again, the professors, and 90% of my professors were not vegans. They were meat eaters, believe it or not. Believe it or not, the vegan professors gave me the worst fucking, were the worst to me. They wouldn't even bring me in. Like, Gary, I'm vegan, but I can't bring you in. That would be biased. I said, really? How many times have these kids heard a lecture about veganism? You think the meat-eating professors are going, well, I shouldn't bring in this meat eater. Like, what do you mean? Play their game. They wouldn't bring me in. Yet the animal agriculture professors at Ohio State brought me in 6 to 8 times a year, 300 students, factory farming students. I went and spoke where people were afraid to speak. My friends go, you spoke to animal ag students? Well, yeah. You want me to speak at the yoga studio? I would speak in a slaughterhouse if they brought me in. I went to rural North Carolina and spoke to hunters. Had hunters coming up to me, ripping up their hunting licenses. Dressed in camouflage, came there to laugh. You can talk to these people. People are thirsting for the truth if you can break it down in the right way. But like the rules that you guys got is a great way. This is why you guys are so successful. You break it down in the right way, you'd be shocked at the people that you can reach. The religious people, I know they're a tough crowd. Man, some of my best talks happened at religious colleges. Valley Forge Christian College, wow. One of my favorite moments too. Don't be afraid to freestyle. I mean, know your stuff. Be in the moment. Religious people are tough. I had this class. I was winning them. And by the way, when I walked into a classroom, I always knew who was good and who was bad. So honestly, I had this psychological power. I'm like, good, 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 bad, on the fence, good, bad, bad, good, good, good. I was 99% right all the time. This class, I had them pegged as mostly good. So it was a great lecture. We get to the Q&A, and now they start playing the scriptural game, which I can play. Because over the years, I became an expert in the Bible too. So they said, but Genesis 9:3, God says everything that moveth along the ground is yours for food. I said, yeah, but you jumped ahead. Genesis 1:29 said, I give you seed-bearing plants for food. And then they bring up their scripture about eating animals. I said, but Isaiah 11:7 says, the wolf will live with the lamb, the cow will feed with the bear, and no one will harm on my holy mountain. The beginning and the end is vegan. So we do this. So every time I said something, I got everybody. And then somebody else said something, I lost them. So I'm getting a little perturbed. So you guys know I can be dramatic. So I stand up there like this. Head down, silence. I'm waiting for them to shut the fuck up. I hear them whispering too, what's he doing? What's he doing up there? 45 seconds, I'm like this. And in my head, I'm coming up with something. I don't know how I'm finishing it. I just know that I'm going to finish in the right spot because I'm speaking for them and I have to. So I came up with, I'm going to say every horrible thing that we do to animals I can think of. And I'm going to preface each one with, if God says it's okay. So if God says it's okay to beat elephants in the circus, if God says it's okay to cut off the beaks of chickens, if God says it's okay to rip the testicles out of baby pigs, if God says it's okay, and I'm getting louder and louder, 3 minutes, I'm not as sharp as I used to be, but I ran down every horrible thing. If God says it's okay, then what does the devil do? And as I said it, I was like, man, that's some tight shit. Don't forget that. And the crowd was like, oh my God. And the Reverend Dr. Bruce Marino, who always brought me in, he's in the back of the room. And he actually was like, everybody, give Gary a round of applause. A little fire, always shed the light on some darkness.
Oh, yeah.
And Valley Forge Christian College was one of my main stomping grounds for many years. And my last year I was there, Dr. Marino says, Gary, before you leave class, he always walked me out to my car. He said, let's stop at the cafeteria for a second. I said, Bruce, don't instigate me, man. He goes, no, you got to come down there. I said, really? He said, just come on down. So he walks me into the cafeteria. It's a huge salad bar. And he goes, that's you. He goes, see those 3 vegan items on the menu? That's you. These kids are demanding it now. You're getting through. They're listening. And it's nice to see that and hear that over the years, because sometimes I felt like people are listening. So it was some major success. And the stat that I got from the professors, they always did surveys, was you convert around 20% of my students every time you speak. And keep in mind the topic that I'm dealing with, the 60-minute time limit, 20%. Now, there were many classes, when people did come and hang out with me once in a while, Erica was with me for several years on the road. She said, Gary, you're in the 50, 60% range. This is crazy. I'm watching them. I see them come up to you. I would think it was higher. I mean, there were classes I converted completely. I remember I'm sorry, I'm telling stories. St. Mary's College. First talk I ever gave without notes. So when I started, I was nervous too. I was fearless, but I was nervous. So even though I didn't really look at my notes, I was like, what if I forget? Oh my God, I just have to have them. So I had to have these 20 pages, and I turned the page. I had it on a music stand. And I knew, I said, you got to start doing this just off the cuff, man. You know your shit now. And I show up at St. Mary's College, and I reach in my briefcase, and there's no notes. I'm like, oh my God. Alex, I got to run to the car real quick. I think I left something. I run to the car. I'm like, oh my God. I left them at UC Berkeley last night. I remember taking them out, put them on the desk. Well, you wanted to do a lecture with no notes. I got no choice. And to this day, it was the best talk I ever gave. All 25 students went vegan. I know this for a fact, because those students kept in touch with Alex over the years, who kept in touch with me and said, Gary, you know those students still email me 7 years later and say that was the day their life changed. Speak from the heart. When I did those philosophy classes, a big philosophy, a lot of philosophy classes over the years, they always thought I studied philosophy, which was weird. I'm like, I don't study philosophy, never have. What, you used Bentham and you went to Socrates, and I said, well, if I went there, it was because I just spoke from here. I never really studied them at all. So speak from your heart, honestly. Yeah. And that's another thing. When people want to tell you that emotion is bad, don't be emotional. What? It's the only thing that's ever changed the world is emotion. That's outrageous. If you heard I Have a Dream speech by Dr. King, 100% emotional. I have a dream that one day my children won't be judged. Are you kidding? This is emotion. Use emotion. Use it. It's a great tool. People will tell you not to use it. It's not. They're playing politics. Politics doesn't work. Emotion works. Everything be a contrarian. That was always my philosophy. Whatever everybody's doing, I'm going to do the opposite. I was always right with that.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually a really good point. You know, I got into it in the workshop about how if you're purely intellectual and brainy and philosophical and logical, and you're just trying to stay there, and the interaction with people trying to convince them on that level to be vegan, it ends up becoming just a bar discussion, right?
Exactly.
And you actually get way better results when you hit them in the chest, because that's what they're going to remember for the rest of their lives. And in your case, when you said, you know, you had people who saw you 4, 5, 6 times, well, I think you'll agree that 90-something% of people will actually probably never be held accountable for this in their entire lives.
And they got held accountable 5 times.
Yeah, so what I like to get across to people in these workshops is, if you have 5 minutes with someone on the streets, understand that that may be the only time that they ever interact with a vegan. So when you are given that opportunity, don't just squander it to get across some philosophical points that are just food for thought.
Let loose. Tell them, is the slaughterhouse the problem, or is the problem who's getting killed in the slaughterhouse? Because if I told you there were humans in there, you would throw a fit. But all of a sudden there's cows in there, and now you're making jokes. So again, is the slaughterhouse a problem, or who's getting slaughtered in there is the problem? Yeah, come up with the good stuff like that. Knock them down with it. Be emotional.
Yeah.
Make them feel, they should feel bad. Didn't we all feel bad? Isn't that why we became vegan?
Yep.
Do what worked for you. Don't go philosophical. I hated the philosophical discussions. I did. In those philosophy classes, but give a philosopher extra time and he'd rationalize the feelings of a thumbtack, for crying out loud. I mean, it was outrageous shit. I'm like, this is right and wrong. Well, Gary, isn't it possible that buildings are alive and they have a soul? No. Well, yeah, it could be. No, it can't be. Stop it. These animals have a soul, though. Why are you ignoring this? I'm not talking about whether buildings have souls anyways. You guys want to talk about that? I'm leaving in 20 minutes. Talk to your professor about that. I'm talking about cows having feelings and pigs and chickens that you just don't want to focus on. And by the way, some of the times when you get people that are irate and don't act properly, say stupid things, it's because you've actually cracked some of their foundations. And when you try to stand on a cracked, crumbled foundation, you become stupid. You start saying stupid things instead of letting it crack and crumble, which we all did, and then rebuild from the ground up, which is what every vegan has done. Again, and it goes back to me saying, what is so wrong with saying I made a mistake? I just don't get people who think that they're perfect. I didn't realize you were perfect, for crying out loud. Like, we make mistakes in life. This is a horrible mistake. It's unacceptable, but I get why it happened. We were lied to. We were duped. Everywhere we turn growing up, from mommy and daddy to our government to our religion to the TV station, tells you to eat cows, pigs, chickens, and turkeys. So, okay, let me deprogram you. Let me unbrainwash you. Listen and let it happen. But yeah, those people just know where they're coming from. They're just grasping, and they're trying to walk on this crumbled foundation. And it's usually absurd.
Yep. All right, I think we should now move into some outreach examples, but isn't this cool?
It's so fun.
I didn't even tell you the crazy stories.
Dude, tell us something about prison.
I have a good
Oh.
idea, actually. Like all the stories, when you're so passionately explaining them, use it for like TikToks and shorts. So
We should record those.
I'm sure there will, like, so many people will.
I got cop confrontations, student confrontations. It's crazy.
There's also one, like in the chat, people enjoy it. Like it's 75 people watching right now. And they also enjoy it a lot.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I wanted to get into those stories with you on a podcast episode.
Okay, all right.
So, but for this presentation, I feel like we should get into some outreach because we've got
No, I'm sorry, yeah.
90 minutes left before we have to exit the building. And then we also wanted to do a Q&A, so.
You sure don't want to do 24 hours of class?
You got the energy for that?
I'm kidding. I'm kidding, man. Enough. We got it. We got it.
50, that's what I said.
No, you said like,
Huh?
you said 90.
Did I say 90?
Yeah.
My brain doesn't compute time right now. I'm sweating like crazy.
Me too. I'm fucking dripping on it. I sweat through my shorts.
But thank you for sharing all of that. And yeah, I think we can now break out into some outreach interactions. Would you guys like to see that, or? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for listening. I appreciate it.
Thank you.